Hello and welcome to another episode of the Young Tongues podcast. My name is Barbara Fountain and I'm the founder and CEO of the Young Tongues, a peer-to-peer support group of young tongue cancer patients from around the globe. And with me is my fabulous co-host, Jamie. Jamie, welcome back to the podcast.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here bright and early on my side of the world.
Incredibly early. I admire you. There is no way I would be up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
I've
So
only been
you're,
up for an hour. I
oh
get
my
up at 4
God.
every day and pry my mouth open. I am a routine, strict routine, except for last week when I was not, and I just was dead to the world,
Oh,
sleeping
bless you.
until I woke up to Barbara's messages. Where are you? What's going on?
Well,
I'm like,
but
oh
we
my
have,
God, you woke me up for work.
but I think we have to explain that we've we've had a bit of a malfunction again. Surprise, surprise. We did a brilliant episode, which we'll try and get recreate today. But basically realised we had a really terrible echo on the line, and it was not usable. And that was my mistake because I didn't wear my headphones like I should do, like a good girl. And then I was like, "Oh, Jamie, I'm so sorry. Can we do it again?" And then yeah.
And
Jamie,
it's just,
I was like, "Are you coming?" And she's like, "Oh my God,
was
just woke
like, hey,
up."
yeah, I heard the phone buzzing, and I was like, you woke me up for work. Thank you. I was just like, I cannot recall, like, I'm sure it's happened more recently than I thought, but I could not recall when I like slept through and when you wake up and you're like, oh my God, I slept through my alarm. Have you like that feeling of just like you're already on defense, right?
Yeah, we all do it. And you know what? Probably you just needed to sleep, so that's fine. But I was also happy to be your wake up call. You can book me again, like an hotel.
You saved the day.
Yes. So, hey, Jamie, I'm just really conscious that we've not had a catch up on the podcast for a really long time. It's now coming towards the end of May. Our last catch up was in February, so a lot has happened. So I guess firstly, like, how are you? What's been going on in your life since February?
Since February, let's see, that was March. Okay, so I had my fifth year cancerversary because I was
Yay.
diagnosed March 2nd of 2020, and then I had my surgery on March 26th. And you know what was really strange? The date just came and went, and I didn't realize it until like my mother-in-law texted me like the day of
Wow.
surgery, like the March 26th. She was like, 5 years ago today, you're in the hospital. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was today. Like I just,
That's amazing because the 5 year mark is a biggie for
yeah, oh
all of
my gosh.
us.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's like encouraging that it just passed you.
Yeah,
Like,
because I was just probably so distracted with life and, I'm just in the groove of things or in the chaos of things, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, that's right," and I, like, looked at that text and I thought about it, and I was like, "Wow," like, look where I am 5 years from now, and it's just, and a part of me was like, 5 years ago? Because some days it feels like, ugh, you have the really bad, like, pain days, and then some days it's like, I forgot all about it, and I was just living life. So that happened, and now I went and I saw my surgeon, Dr. O. He's like the best. Him and I are like buddies, and um, I actually had a message from somebody, probably I think a month ago, and she was like, "Hey, I saw Dr. O. I just got diagnosed. He told me about you and about what you
oh,
do in the podcast and Young Tubs, and uh, I just wanted to reach out because like he was really like." Really grateful for what we do and how we're sharing our stories. So it's like, oh yeah, he's the best, and it was just it was nice to go and see him and be like, okay, we're at our 5 year mark because a lot of time like we have to reach that 5 year mark, and then we're like, okay, it should be smooth sailing from here. It's just like hitting those milestones. It kind of like okay, but now there's also the okay, I hit my 5 year mark. So am I going to see you less? What if something comes up? How am I going to monitor this?
yeah. What did you choose to do? Did you
He,
get did you get a choice or I don't know. I got a
yeah,
choice. So
he told me, he's like, well, I'll see you in 6 months. Like I just, every
amazing.
6 months. Yeah. And I was like, okay. And, yeah, so now we're in May and it is like wrapping up the end of the school year, and I'm just busy and really tired as I sleep in. But I'm just really I'm happy to be busy and in the chaos and like all the kids' sports and stuff. Like I just have to reflect and be like, this is exactly where you wanted to be. Like 5 years ago, this is
Yeah,
where you wanted to be. So I'm grateful. Grateful
that's
this
massive.
morning.
And also, you didn't you weren't you putting on a big show with the school kids as well?
I
I
did.
remember
Oh my
that.
gosh. Ugh, yeah, that was. I'm glad that's over. But they were great. We did Beetlejuice the musical, and I did get some hand slapping from the school district because they were like, "This is a little much for these elementary school." I was like, "We took out all the bad parts and we added good." Like, it was fine.
You made it PG.
Yeah. So it's either people really loved it or they were like, no, we should have done Peter Pan, but can't please everybody. But yeah, that was a lot, and that's done. So, what
And I
about
think that
you?
I think that's a really nice reflection. And before we come to me, I think it's a
Oh
really
yeah,
nice reflection with the 5 years. If you think about where you were, even just when we started this podcast a couple of years ago, in terms of the challenges you were having with your speech and your jaw and your voice and being able to project your voice. And I mean, how many kids were in that musical that you had to like boss around and shout at?
80, but I did have like a Britney Spears microphone that I was like, I have to wear this all the time because I'm not loud. I guess I'm not. Even yesterday, we were at a baseball game and I was trying to yell, like, I was just like, I was trying to get someone's attention. And after 3 times, I was like, oh, I guess I'm not as loud as like I think. Like, I physically can't do it. But I was like, I'll just wear a Britney Spears microphone when I walk around.
That's a really good idea, actually. But you have to go and get like these tiny little megaphones for the baseball, like to go, hello.
Yeah, have a microphone and do commentary the whole time.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm okay. I am much better. So in February, I was just about to go off to Switzerland for my lovely carnival, and
That's right. We were talking about
yeah,
you were going to do your costume reveal. What you were.
my costume reveal. Well, I'm afraid you're going to have to wait an extra year for my costume reveal because unfortunately I had to leave early. I was in Switzerland for a couple of weeks, and I think I'd not realised that my mental health wasn't very good, and I ended up having a bit of a mental health crisis, which I think is a fair evaluation of the situation. And I rang Nick, and I just said, "Look, don't come. I need to come home. We need to talk. I need support." And that's what we did. So the costumes stayed in the cupboard for another year, and I'm just going to leave you in suspense because they are awesome, and we'll come back to it next year.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think in terms of my mental health, we talked, I think, on the last podcast about my lipedema diagnosis that I got in the autumn. I think that was a big sort of weight on me, and I don't think I realised how much that sort of impacted me. But then on top of that, and we've spoken about this before, the day before I left to go to Switzerland, I received the letter with my official diagnosis of ME stroke CFS. So it's I can't pronounce the ME one, but it's chronic fatigue syndrome. And
Right. I remember you were waiting to hear about that.
yeah, I was waiting to hear, and I went through the entire assessment. I don't know if we talked about the assessment on the podcast, but I went through the entire assessment, which was lengthy and quite hard. And I got this letter, and in this letter, it gave me pieces of information that, seeing them in black and white, kind of, I think, shocked me quite a bit and freaked me a bit. And I think I underestimated how that would impact my mental health, on top of, running the charity, having pressures in terms of like, where does the money come from for the next year, and then having also to deal with the humanity of what of the young tongues is, which I guess I'm exposed to every single day.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it all just built like an onion, and then it just disintegrated, unfortunately, whilst I was in Switzerland, and I was meant to go and have a holiday and a good time. But it's good that I came home and we just spent the week on the beach to decompress. But yeah, coming back to the CFS diagnosis, what's relevant to young tongues, which I thought was really interesting, is when it came to the causation of the chronic fatigue syndrome, because chronic fatigue is often sort of viral. Long COVID is a sort of variation of it, and often they all were asking me, did you have a viral infection? I'm like, well, not as far as I'm aware. I've had COVID, but I always recovered very well. And then they dug a lot deeper, and they really spoke to me about the cancer diagnosis and the surgery that I had. And on this letter, it basically says they have determined that the causation of my chronic fatigue syndrome is due to number one, the length of the operation, that my body maybe just couldn't hack the general anesthetic as well as other bodies had, even though in the kind of paperwork of my actual surgery there was no signals that I was not doing very well. My heart rate was stable, my signs were all stable, but I guess nobody really knows how a general anesthetic will impact them, especially not a 12-hour one. Mm-hmm. And the second point, which really threw me, and I would really love for a bit more research into this, because they even sort of caveated it that this could have happened, but they can't say for sure, is in this, the person who assessed me, they said they were very much struck that I had no idea that I was going to get diagnosed with cancer. And they feel that the fact that I was so blindsided and the shock that I experienced, and also they sort of noted my behaviour after the diagnosis was very typical of someone who had shock, as in like not getting emotional, not really taking in the gravity of the situation, that they think I had shock, and that shock there's some evidence that shock can cause chronic fatigue syndrome. They've apparently seen it in people who've had car accidents and then had shock. And so it's really that was like wow, because
that's a bit of a shock to hear.
Yeah, because on one hand, with the surgery, I'm like, well, if I hadn't had the surgery, I wouldn't be alive, and ultimately, if this is my side effect, and I make peace with it and I move on. But you know what, that thing about the shock, it's really niggling me, because that could have been avoided, because I should have never been told you definitely don't have cancer. We all know that. We shouldn't have never been told. Nobody should ever tell anyone you definitely don't have cancer unless you have a biopsy result. But that sort of made me think, actually, was there something that could have avoided this thing that I'm living with now? And then the other two things that sort of really got to me was the fact that they in the paperwork that I received with it that explains chronic fatigue to me, it's they said it quite wrongly has been described as a mental health diagnosis in the past, but actually it is a neurological disease, a neurological condition. And I'm like, fuck, okay. And on one hand, I'm relieved, because I honestly sometimes think, like, am I going stupid? Like, is it me?
Totally. Like, why can I just not, like...
Yeah, why can't I just do this simple task that I usually can always do? And some days I just can't do it. And also, in the past, I've always been worried, maybe I've got a brain tumour, but all of those sort of worries have been put to bed, because I'm like, okay, I have a neurological condition, which means sometimes, for no reason whatsoever, I just can't function the way that I can on the next day or a day before. Yeah. And then the third piece of information in this whole information pack is that although there are methods to improve And most definitely there are methods for me to ensure that the disease doesn't progress further and get worse. There's no cure. There's no way of treatment. There's no tablets I can take. There's nothing to make this go away, like, ever. It's like, ever? Because
ever?
Ever. And I'm like, I know obviously this isn't the reality for everyone, but when I was like diagnosed with cancer, I was like, oh, but it's curable and I will get better. And
Yeah.
again, I know this is a whole, we're 6 years on now and we have a much better understanding of what that meant. But at the time, I meant better meant being me, like the way I was before. Maybe not quite, but similar. But not like having something that stops me from doing things for forever. And I'm still getting my head around it, but I'm slowly but surely making peace, and I'm learning more about it. And I think the more I learn about it, the better I am getting at accepting and healing, and also trying to do my utmost to make sure that this doesn't get worse, and also give myself a bit of grace now and again, be kind to myself and go, okay, it's one of those days. But yeah, in February, I was most definitely not in that headspace. So trying to go to a really loud carnival with lots of people, it was, and alcohol as well, because, I can't do carnival without alcohol, sorry. It's just the whole mixture was not a good thing. And I'm really glad I came home before it all started there, and I was able to have some time to recover. And then, I also had the most horrendous chest infection after as well, which kind of sat me on my ass for 4 weeks anyhow. But I think that was just my whole body going, right, your nervous system's all over the place.
Like, recognize, like, I know I need to come home. I need to,
Yeah, and I wasn't, let's say like that, I wasn't very productive for about 6 to 8 weeks. But hey, it's okay, that's life. And actually, I just did my quarterly reports for the charity, and I'm still astonished how much I did get done. So in that,
you do a lot.
Yeah, and in the moment, I'm like beating myself up, and I should be doing more. But then actually, when I look back and I go, oh, Barbara, you did an awful lot, but you just didn't do the stuff you didn't really have. I just didn't do the admin. I just didn't reply to the emails that weren't like super, super important. And I can say this now relaxed because I have finally caught up. so yeah. Yeah, it would have asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have still been spiraling. But now that I've caught up on things, I'm chilled about it. And I know it will happen again, where things just get too much and things build up.
Can you feel it coming on, like the chronic fatigue, or do you feel like, okay, I know I'm going to have like a bad couple of days in the next, like, do you feel when it gets, or is it like it gets there and then it's just...
Yeah, you know what? It's really difficult. So I'm currently so they've given me this workbook to go through, and there's lots of information in there. And some of it is sort of like common sense, I would say. Or it's like, it sounds a bit like a wellness self-help book, but actually it's really clever. And what I've realized is that I have to fundamentally change my behavior for everything and live my life differently in a way I have never done. And it was quite, one of the things I thought quite insightful when I spoke to this assessor. She said to me, look, you are the archetype of the type of people we see with this, because you push, you're ambitious, you're positive, and you go to, you're boom and bust. And the thing is, I have lived my entire life as a boom and buster, like before I was ill. Like,
the hustle culture. It's what we were culture. Like. That's what we were.
I've worked in the events industry. Work. Well, first, I worked like in the hospitality industry, and we all know we do silly hours in the hospitality industry. Then I went on to stage, and there you taught like, hey, 1, 2, 3, turn, and you're just like constantly working. And then I guess later on here in the UK, I worked 10 years in the events industry. And, when you're working on a festival site or an event site or a conference site, you're pulling 18-hour days. So I used to do that all the time, where I would like do the week or 2 weeks or sometimes even a month's work, and then I'd just die. Then I'd just come home and sleep for weeks and be like,
this event, and then the event happens, and you're like all day, and then it's like coming down off of that.
Yeah, and the adrenaline is really high. So again, can you imagine all those stress? Because I didn't know about cortisol and stress hormones and all of that. That was just like, this is just how I live my life. And when you're in your early 20s, that's absolutely
you could do everything.
But when you've had cancer and then you're suddenly like, because that was a thing, like when I closed down my company, some people were like, well, why? And I'm like, I just can't do it anymore. But I couldn't quite explain why I couldn't do it anymore. Now it makes totally sense, because I remember the last festival I worked at with Arctangent, I gave it everything, and I totally overdid it as well, because I was compensating for like my perception of not being able to perform the way I did. So I was totally over, looking back now, I'm like, Barbara,
you overcompensated for what? Because you're like, I really
really, and I hammered my body and my mental health, and I came back from that festival and I basically not only had the massive come down that I have had after every bit of event work, because you go from a really heightened environment to like home, so you have that come down, but then also like everything hurt, and I was shaking and crying for a month. Like I had a proper burnout. I could not self-regulate. I couldn't sleep, and then it all spiraled. And then I came, it took me about a month or so, and I came to the conclusion, I can't do this work anymore, because I don't have the stamina. I can't recover quick enough anymore in order to then go and do the next job. I then had to cancel other work I had because I wasn't able to go and do that. So that was that. And then obviously Young Tongues just happened. It was a hobby at first, and it happened. And then I thought, there's a need here. And then we pursued that. But yeah, so one of the main things that I came up with, because you asked about, do you know if it's coming on? It's really funny. I'm reading this book, and it's telling me you need to learn to stop before you get tired, because as soon as you're exhausted, it's too late. I'm like, how? How?
Isn't that when it does tell me I'm tired? Isn't that what it is?
But I don't realize, because I hyper focus. Like when I'm working on something like a report or something, I'm dialed in.
Yeah.
I don't realize that I've overdone it until I have overdone it. So there's a whole different approach, which basically now means even though I've got some good routines, I sort of need to build them out, and I need to take it slower. Like everything needs to slow down a tad, and then I need to take lots of breaks in between on the day. And breaks, by the way, my break used to be go downstairs, do the washing up, listen to a podcast, put the wash on, do about 3 things at once. Oh, apparently that's not having a break. Having a break is standing, staring at my blank wall for 2 minutes with no sound and no sensory, completely sensory deprivation.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you have a podcast on, or you have emphatic music or anything emotional, it's taking energy. And I'm like,
wow, you have to do like a reset.
Yes, but also, how am I ever going to get anything done? Like, how?
Just thinking about that would stress you out, to be like, oh, I'm going to be so exhausted because I have to take all these breaks and I won't be able to get anything done.
And obviously it's all about balance, and I'm now trying to find my ways, and I know I'm probably exaggerating as well, but I know that eventually I'll find a rhythm, and also I now know that if I continue going down the boom and bust, there are consequences.
Yeah.
The consequences is that the chronic fatigue can get worse. And this lady said it to me just so bluntly. I mean, she couldn't have been even more rude, but it was helpful because she was so strong. She said, like, if you continue down the path that you are now, you might get to a point where you can't get out of bed anymore. when it gets so bad. You might then catch a virus, which then really F's you over. And you will not be able to enjoy your life or do the work that you love doing. And, that's another contemplation that I've been having with myself is I love, like, the young tongues means so much to me. Having built this up, and I have so many plans for this and such big aspirations, and I want to grow this organization and bring other people in to carry this vision. But ultimately, if I continue down this path and at this level that I'm working at the moment, I won't be able to do that. I won't have that privilege. And either the young tongues is going to fail with me, or I just end up having to hand it over to someone else. And obviously, I don't want to do that. I want to continue this project. So, so it's been a bit of a reality check. But I am much better now. So we're getting there.
Yeah. It's like now we have the diagnosis. And like you said, you're learning how to do things that a little bit differently. And I feel like a lot of... especially I saw a post actually not too long ago in the Young Tongues on Facebook. Someone was talking about like, okay, when do you start feeling like I've done surgery, and like, when do we start, like, when can I go back to work? When can I start feeling more like myself and have the energy? And that's hard to answer because it took for me, I didn't feel good until like 2 years after I started to feel a little bit. I was still like so tired all the time. And again, like I would bring that up to my doctor, and like it led to like, oh, your thyroid's not working because of radiation. Like I didn't even know that was a thing that could happen. But like bring it up and talk to your doctor. Like, I'm tired all the time. What could we do? Like it could be something, but like just know it takes a while to recover.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, like I brought it up a lot, and we did eventually, I realised, so in the UK, if you're listening from the UK and you're wondering who do I need to bring this up with, bring it up with your consultant. However, take it to your general practitioner.
Yeah, same here in the States.
Yeah, and then go to your general practitioner and say, look, my consultant has basically said to come to you. These are all my symptoms. Can we please perform like a full spectrum of tests? So I had all the blood tests done to rule out, because thyroid problems is a real thing, especially for those that had radiation.
Yes. I get blood work done every 3 months so they can test my levels, because some will be like, I'm just so tired. I don't know if it's me, if I'm doing too much, or if it's like something else. And so every 3 months I get like a panel, and they can see like, oh, we need to adjust your medication on this. And then I'm like, oh, and that was it. Sometimes that's it. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And then sometimes it's something else. But the fact that you have those in place, you can talk to your doctor about it.
And for us women, like iron is really important. A lot of us don't realise that we don't have enough iron. There's a whole spectrum of things. So yeah, definitely. And that is such a big question. When will I feel better again? Because everyone's better is different as well. I'm astonished. And I think it's, mostly Americans, because you kind of are forced to. But I'm always astonished how quickly some people go back to work.
Me too.
But then I also realise sometimes it's like... it's a privilege thing of being able to stay off work for longer. Like some people just can't afford to have more time off. Like they don't get sick pay, or they don't get they don't have any government support or insurance, at risk of losing their job and losing their insurance, which is much worse. And then in the UK, I think we were definitely granted a lot more time, although it also gets financially difficult at some point. But I also am like, some people are just... they feel better by going back to work. That's the other thing.
Because it's like getting back to normal. It's another thing that's like, okay, I'm getting back to what I was before, and things feel a little bit normal. There's a routine.
Yeah, having a bit of normalcy. So yeah. Oh my goodness. So yeah, that's what's been going on with me personally. Professionally, I have got a bit of lots of news with regards to Young Tongues. But I just want to tell you guys first that we've just yesterday, or for you listening, sorry, about a week ago, launched our upcoming event, which is called Unmuted. And it's the Young Tongues annual impact event. And you are all invited. So it doesn't matter if you're a patient, a carer, if you work as a clinician or a researcher, or if you're just like a general person who's interested in what the Young Tongues gets up to. We invite you all along. It's on, does she know the date off by heart? It's on a Sunday in July, and she opens her diary just to double check. Yes, it's on Sunday, the 6th of July. Starts... and all the timings are online because I'm now not sure if it's at 1 or 2 p.m. UK time. So just have a look online.
All the info will be there.
All the info will be there, but please register with the links. And this event is all about, it's about celebrating what we've achieved over the last year, our first year of being a registered charity, but also very much about looking into the future and look at some of the many exciting projects we have coming up, not just in how we want to improve how we support patients, because that is a big aspect, but also how we want to push forward with being more involved with the research community and being able to unveil a couple of the early projects that we are involved with, but also trying to show how we as an organisation want to position ourselves globally as the driving force for young people with tongue cancer and everything that comes with that. So yeah, please come along just please come along and join in and be part of the family.
Awesome.
Yes. And obviously everything along the theme unmuted, because I feel we've been on mute for long enough.
I love it.
Yeah, and I guess one of the exciting things that have happened, Jamie, as you might know and recall from our chat last week, a couple of weeks ago, is at the end of March? Yes, at the end of March, I was privileged to be invited to speak as part of the Make Sense campaign, which is the European Head and Neck Cancer Awareness campaign, at a conference called ECNO, which is the European Congress of Head and Neck Oncology. So I was absolutely privileged to be flown to Amsterdam, which is a lovely city, by the way, and speak in front of a respectable amount of people about the Young Tongues, about who we are, but also the challenges we face to receive diagnosis, but also some of the challenges we face in terms of best practice and beyond that. I really, really enjoyed it and I loved it, and I met so many amazing people. Lots of people I still have to follow up with. It's on my to-do list for this week. And it was, I really felt, the cool thing was a few people came up to me and already knew about Young Tongues, and I was like, yes, which is incredible.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and like one lady, are you the girl from Young Tongues? I'm like, yeah. I'm like,
oh, yes, I am.
Yes, I am, which was amazing. And I really feel like the clinical community is very much behind us and really wants to support us and wants to work with us and wants to hear from us in terms of how we can improve, obviously, not just early diagnosis, but also how treatment impacts us and communications and all of that. So that's really exciting. And I also got to speak at a conference called BISM just the week after in Birmingham. BISM stands for British and Irish. BIS. What's the S
all
for?
All these acronyms. Echo.
I know, so many acronyms. British and Irish. Is it symposium? No, can't be symposium. Well, it's basically an association of oral medicine. And that was so interesting to attend because I didn't realise like oral medicine is like a whole like medical thing on itself. It's kind of dentistry, but not quite dentistry. And these people, they usually work in the hospital settings. So it's sort of advanced diseases in the oral
Okay.
mouth, in the cavity. And I didn't realize how many different ailments there are that can
Yeah.
happen in your mouth. Yeah. So I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And also what's really, I'm learning a bit more about the sort of precursors to cancer, like the dysplasias and Lynchian planus or something like that. I'm sorry if I'm still pronouncing
I
things
know all
wrongly.
those names are so hard. Like, I don't know if I say it right or if it's pronounced differently in one area. Like,
Yeah, I finally got my answer to squamous cell. Finally, someone. It was actually after that speech, a very lovely lady came up to me and she said, "I just need to let you know the way you pronounce it is squamous cell carcinoma, like a
carcinoma.
car, like
Yeah.
driving a car." And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I've been saying it wrong for
Carcinoma.
5 years. Squamous cell carcinoma. Now I've got a thing
Yeah.
to remember it as well. It's like a car. So
Yeah.
that's that. Yeah, and it was a really interesting conference. I was only there for the afternoon, and I got to do the speech as well about the young tongues. And I just thought, so the people in these rooms, they do biopsies. And and I thought, as I've got a room full of people who do biopsies, and I just sort of mentioned that as a community, if you mention the word biopsy, everyone goes wild in terms of how painful they are, and that we are kind of surprised that there isn't better support for pain relief after. So not the local anaesthetic, because that works, but it's when the local anaesthetic runs out, and how incredibly painful it is, and how we're basically calling for better communication and better drugs to support that. And it was so interesting. I actually got some pushback. I was like, wow. So after I did my speech, I had a couple of people come up and really challenge me on this little tiny little part of the entire speech. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And one person was very concerned about opioids and the impacts of opioids, and reminded me about the epidemic in America, which I was like, yes, for sure.
Yes.
But I am not talking about prescribing like a whole bottle of morphine.
No.
I'm talking about prescribing something small, but that will like just tackle that pain. And also when we're talking about biopsy pain, it's not chronic pain. It's very sharp, intense pain
For a short amount of time.
For a short amount of time in terms of our lifespan, actually a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, the impact of this severe pain on our mental well-being is crazy. And also the way it's communicated to us, like in the literature and the way, the words that clinicians use, you will feel some discomfort, or this is going to hurt a bit, or I was just like, no. This is going to be the most excruciating pain you have ever lived through, unless you have adequate pain relief, funnily enough,
Yeah.
So it was really interesting. And then, but I'm saying this with actually the utmost respect, because I think I had a little learning moment. And I think I've learned that when I go to these conferences full of clinicians and researchers, me standing up there and telling them stories of patients has one impact. But actually, when I'm trying to change behavior or trying to change the way they think about things, I need data. I need to back up. I need to back it up.
Numbers, data,
Yeah, I need to scientifically back up what I'm telling them. And actually, I don't know why I didn't think of that before I walked into those rooms, I guess. So I then had this a very interesting discussion with someone who does biopsies. And it was really funny because this person, and I hope they don't mind me sharing this. I don't know if they'll ever hear this anyhow, but they kind of went like, oh, but I've never had any complaints.
We never see you again.
Well, firstly, we never see you again. And secondly, when I'm freshly diagnosed with cancer, there is no way I'm complaining about the pain of my biopsy, because I don't want to be the complainer. I want to be the little evangelic best cancer patient you've ever had.
Yeah,
There
so
is
you're
no way I'm complaining
good
about
care.
anything.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So yeah, that was an interesting conversation. But this person did say something to me, and they said like, oh, but you could do like a survey with the young tongues and then transform that into like a scientific poster, which they have a lot at these conferences. And I was like, oh, am I allowed to do that? Do I not need to have like a PhD? And he's like, no. I was like, oh, cool. So we're gonna do that. I don't know when, dear listeners, but in the near future, because I need to get like some people together and get like all my ducks in a row. I need to know if I need ethical approval, and then I also need to figure out how we ask the right questions, so we can then turn it into this scientific poster, and how the whole process works. But we need to do that, because I feel like we need to really demonstrate that this is not the best way to treat people.
Yeah. If that's you gotta know your audience and how they're gonna listen. They need the numbers and the data. You're right.
Yeah. And the only sort of challenge that we'll have is that we'll need at least like 1,000 people to participate. So we'll want to share it beyond the young tongues into other tongue cancer groups, as in not just our age groups, but beyond that as well, just to get that extra feedback. And who knows, maybe it turns out there's only a small percentage of us that have this really painful experience. I doubt it, but it could be possible.
Yeah. I've had 2 biopsies.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's something needs to be done about the pain management for it. And then you're right. Like telling them stories. So like, listen, like it's not enough. And then we're like, well, no one's complained. No one's told us.
Yeah. I listened to a really interesting podcast. So on BBC iPlayer, which you can get worldwide, there's a podcast with 2 identical twin brothers, the Van Tulleken brothers. They're both doctors. They're really interesting people, really nice people. And they've got this really great podcast on at the moment. And they had one, it was about headaches, out of all things. But one of them, who's one of the doctors, kind of said like he really struggles to empathize with his patients because he's never had a headache. Like he barely ever gets headaches. And he said, and he sort of reflected, it was like only a few seconds of the podcast, but I could see him reflecting. He kind of said like, I must admit, in general, I find it really difficult to empathize with pain because I've never experienced the pain. And I think that's a really actually quite a fair thing to say. Like, It must be really difficult. Like, we all know what it's like to get a biopsy on our tongue. I would like to think that 99.9% of people who are administering the biopsy never had a biopsy to their tongue. So maybe we do need to communicate, but like give them a chance to help us. And you know, we're not criticizing or anything like that. That's what the point I'm trying to make is we're not criticizing. We just would like them to hear us and then help us provide better care for us. So anyhow, that's where we are. But hopefully in the future we won't even need biopsies. There'll be new tech available.
That is the future.
Yeah,
that's our hope.
That's our hope. Oh, right. Well, I unfortunately have one more thing to chat
Unfortunately.
about. Unfortunately, I know this comes really ominous.
Oh no.
Yeah, it is an unfortunately. So to our listeners, last week in our podcast, I had the immense privilege of having my dear friend Molly come onto the podcast to share her story, and it was such an incredible episode, and I'm so grateful for her sharing her story. And you know, you guys heard me tear up and get slightly emotional, and I am grateful that I have some of the words that Molly shared with me on record for me to have for eternity. And I think we're all incredibly grateful to Molly for how she shared her story, and how incredibly, how much courage she has, and how she goes through life with a smile even though things are very tough. Unfortunately, just shortly after we recorded that episode, things have changed, as they often do. Mm-hmm. And the regime and the chemo regime Molly was on, unfortunately, is not working anymore. And there are still some options. They are limited. She has now officially retired from her work, and I think the pace of life has definitely changed. Nonetheless, I'm happy to report that she is still Molly and still making the best out of the situation to her. So we just wanted to keep you up to date on this situation, especially in light of last week's episode. And we encourage you all to follow the links on our Instagram to find Molly's Instagram account, especially if you are living with an incurable diagnosis, because I feel, even though we all know where this is heading, I still believe that Molly's story gives us hope and also shows that there is joy and life even at a progressed stage of this cancer. So Molly, we love you. Sending you lots of love.
And just, I watch her story. She always, she's on TikTok too. So I'm always watching her and how she's just like, just telling everybody about her day and like, hey, this is how it is. This is my day and this is what I do to, I find go take my dogs on walks. And like, it's just the way that she's sharing is so vulnerable, but you can see a little bit of like, it's her. Like there's a little bit, like it hasn't, I don't know how to say it delicately. Like it's just like she's like, I'm acknowledging this is what it is, and I'm still gonna do what I can, do with my thing.
There's real beauty in it.
It really is.
Yeah, I mean, God, that girl's beautiful. It's unfair. she doesn't even have hair, and she's absolutely gorgeous. Oh, Molly.
Yeah.
Yes. So our love goes out to you, and indeed, lots of other young tongues who are in the same situation as Molly, in various different stages. So all our love goes out to you. So thank you so much for sharing and also being part of the community. So on that note, Jamie,
Barbara,
let's reconvene in a few weeks' time, because we have decided to go on a little break, didn't we?
You know it. Summer's coming up.
Summer's coming up. So absolutely. So we're going to be so we've got enough episodes to kind of keep us going through most of the summer, and then Jamie and I are going to take a little break. So season 2, this very long season 2, will come to an end, and hopefully we will come back together. Well, not hopefully, we'll most definitely come back together.
Absolutely, we'll be here.
Absolutely, we'll be here, either in this format or in a new format, depending on if I can get someone to give me some money. I'm not going to hide this here. We are after sponsors. So if you know anyone who has a business or who does products that would be amazing for like young tongue cancer patients, I don't know.
Send them our way.
Yeah, send them our way. We would love to take their money in exchange for a bit of advertisement. Just so it will help us, upgrade our gear and also get a little bit of help with editing, so I have a little bit less to do. So that would be much appreciated.
That would be amazing.
So, exactly. So Jamie, see you in a few weeks.
See you in a few. Thank you everybody for being here. We appreciate you so much.
What Jamie said. Bye-bye.
Bye.